That probably has to do with urban planning, strangely enough. Being from Portugal is one of the things we were discussing earlier today in this launch. With different countries, some countries you live more in houses, whether they're twin houses or separate, and other countries you live more in apartment blocks. I happened to grow up in a building with flats. Was an architect project. He made this building for his daughter to live in, and it was going to be an income earner for her. So the daughter of the architect lived in the first floor. My parents and I lived on the ground floor, and my grandparents lived on the second floor. And my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was a pianist, and had a piano duo with her teacher, who turned out to be my first teacher, and was the first teacher of another pianist that has somewhat of an association with Yamaha, Maria João Pires.
Oh.
So we shared our first teacher. And the way I met him, even before I had lessons with him, was when he would be with my grandmother in her apartment, so on the second floor, doing their 2 piano rehearsals. So my first contact with piano wasn't as a soloist or wasn't solo piano, it was 2 pianos. And it was just the sound, what you could do, what you could communicate, and how much you could put together when you had 2 keyboards going at the same time. And the interaction. So still today, probably, this is a very private thing that I'm going to share, but to this day, I probably get more fun out of chamber music or 2 pianos than I get out of a piano concerto or a single piano, because it's the interaction with the other person. It's having fun. It's like, some kids like playing football, as I said. Playing football by yourself is no fun. Shooting basketball hoops by yourself is no fun. You need somebody there with. And for me, piano was that too. It was the interaction and the conversations that you can have, rather than through words, through the instruments. God, no. Like I said, and I've said this in many interviews, which is fun, and it still holds true. So it's one of the good constants in my life. If I'm ever asked to go on a desert island and I have to choose the scores or the recordings, it better be a huge island, because there's lots. Really, really lots. It's very difficult to narrow it down. Most of the times when there's a memorable concert in my mind, something that I had particular pleasure in, it was probably because of the instrument I was playing in. And that probably has to do with the condition to which the piano was prepared. So when I'm on stage and I'm by myself or with an orchestra, if I have an instrument that shows me new things, an instrument that shows me new sounds, an instrument that physically shows me through the keyboard new ways of doing things and opens new doors to new rooms I haven't visited before, those are the ones where my brain synapses really get going, and those are the ones where I have fun. So for example, the first time I played a Yamaha concert grand in Japan on stage, and that was a concert with the Shinsei Nippon Orchestra at Bunkamura, and I did Rachmaninoff III. This was about 1991, a year after I'd won Leeds competition. And I sat down at that piano, and it was the first time, it wasn't the first time I was playing a Yamaha concert grand, but it was the first time I was playing one in Japan, prepared by a Yamaha in-house technician. The feeling was so incredible, because it felt it was the first time I was tasting one properly. That's happened with other makes, with other pianos, places. Or there was one concert also that I did with Czech Philharmonic, and it was Ion Marin conducting. It was probably one of my favorite conductors to work with. And I was doing Liszt concerto at the Rodolfinum in Prague with the Czech Philharmonic and Ion Marin, and the place is packed. And you think of all the history in that room, and Prague audiences are, heavy. They probably know the concerto at least as well as you do. Right. And getting through it and having the backup of that wonderful conductor and having that amazing orchestra there, helping me achieve all the things that I wanted to achieve with that piece, and then getting the feedback from the audience. It's when all the little pieces in the puzzle really clank together, and you hear that in your mind, you hear that clunk, and the doors lock, and everything is in place. Those are very, very special. It's actually a very old piano, because you really do feel the culmination of all the experience that all those amazing people back in Japan, in those factories, which I've had the pleasure, the privilege of seeing, all the experience that's been poured into it. And I remember the first time I tried one, and that was in London here at Yamaha Artist Services. And I turned to the person that I was with, and I said, very interesting. You can actually feel the soul of the people that have built this. They've actually managed to transfer it into the piano. What it does for me the one thing that I'm most interested in a piano, which is what happens after the hammer has hit the string. Yes, what happens until it hits the string is very important, because if that doesn't work, nothing else works. But when you're working with that level of an instrument, when you're dealing with a consagrand, most companies that are building consagrands, they have to be good pianos, or they just won't survive or succeed. In this case, the CFX, what really makes the difference is you forget everything that's happening mechanically, because you have that kind of trust and you have that kind of consistency, that you have the luxury of forgetting the physicality of the instrument. The trust is so predominant that you don't worry about it anymore. You move on to bigger and better things. What do you move on to? What happens after the strike? How you mold sound after your finger has pressed the key. And that's where the piano succeeds. How you layer things, how you use the pedal, how you voice things, how you hit the note in a specific way, how you highlight it, so that when all those sounds are mixed together, what's on top, what's in the middle, you might have 256 layers, but how you organize them makes the difference, and how the piano allows you to organize them makes the difference. And this piano is incredibly user-friendly, which is why you forget that you're dealing with a machine. You start thinking that you're actually grabbing the sound with your hands in the middle of the air. And so it's the transparent, it's possibly the most unassuming consagrand you're going to play, if you understand what I mean. It's the piano with the least amount of ego and the most amount of result.